the back thing, the other side. Push that down. There you go. Bam.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So how much of this is theoretical and how much of this is observed from recovered vehicles?
I'm not allowed to talk about what the government may or may not have in its possession, other than that so I went through a very lengthy Pentagon review process. Recently, I wrote, I won't talk about it here, but I wrote something. And I had to go through Pentagon to have a review process. And it took almost a year. In this thing I wrote, I talk about up to the part I can talk about. Mm-hmm. And they approved for me to talk about up to that point. When it comes to what the government may or may not have in its possession, all I can simply say is that there is very compelling evidence to suggest that the U.S. government is in absolute possession of exotic material that is not made by humans. Now, beyond that, I can't really expound upon. I haven't been given permission to talk about it. But what I can say is what I've already said for the record, which has been approved. I won't get in trouble by saying it. Mm-hmm. Is that we are there's very compelling data to suggest that we are in possession of.
Why is the pen teasing us? Why do they tell you? Why are they allowing you to say we are in possession of something that was not made by human beings, but not allowed to elaborate, not allowed to show these very compelling videos that you're talking about that you've seen?
Well, two reasons. I don't think they have a choice. I think with now the introduction of cell phones and Ring cameras, the cat's out of the bag. It's the worst kept secret at this point. Two, there is a faction, unlike before in the Cold War, there is a faction of people inside the government that do want this conversation to occur. But equally, there's still a faction of people that are very mad with me. They do not want me having this conversation. And mark my words, just by me being on your show, it is going to cause an absolute storm inside the Pentagon, and I am sure the other shoe's going. I promise you, you're going to hear all sorts of stuff. People make stuff up about me, trying to discredit this topic, because as many people are in the government that want this topic to be discussed now, there's still some people that do not want this conversation.
Steelman their position? Steelman their position, meaning could you argue it from their perspective?
Absolutely.
Like why?
Sure.
What would be a good reason to keep this stuff quiet?
And I want to preface here, I'm not fear-mongering.
No, I don't think you are.
Look, if I was a military person, right, I would look at this from the perspective of there's three options. They're good, they're neutral, or they're bad. So let's go down this road for a second. Let's say they're good, right? Well, we got nothing to worry about. The problem is there's nothing to suggest that they truly are benevolent. People say, well, they're like, they don't want us to nuke ourselves. Well, I discuss it in what I wrote, that there's no data to suggest that. They didn't stop us from dropping atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and vaporizing 500,000 living souls. They didn't stop us when we started developing nuclear weapons from the atomic age. They didn't stop the proliferation of nuclear weapons. They didn't stop the testing and the range of atomic and nuclear weapons. And now, how many countries have weapons and nuclear weapons? A lot, right? They didn't stop Chernobyl. They didn't stop Fukushima. They didn't stop 3 Mile Island. So to say that they're here to help us, I'm not sure there's data. People say, well, in Minot and in North Dakota and Montana, the UFOs came in and they interfered with our nuclear weapons and they brought the entire Echo flight offline. Which, by the way, I have the government report on that if you want it. But in Russia, a lot of people don't know, they turned them on. Right? So that's equally scary. They're interfering with our nuclear capability, whether to attack or to defend ourselves.
So when you turned them on in Russia, this is a Russian report?
Yeah. So this is I don't know if you remember the hearing that occurred last year where with
David Grush?
The other one, with Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, Ronald Moultrie, and some from the Navy. And I think it was Congressman Gallagher that asked the very specific question. And he said, are you aware of UFOs interfering with our nuclear capabilities? And the response was something like, no, I'm not really familiar with it, never heard of it. And then the question was, we asked specifically at these locations. And the government's response was, no, not familiar with it. Well, Here's the actual report from the Department of Defense. This is the actual intelligence report that was released through FOIA. There's a gentleman out there who runs a site called the Black Vault. His name is John Greenwald. He's probably the world authority on Freedom of Information Act, and he has a wealth of data that is out available to the public that he has received from the government. This is one of those documents. This is the document that our government has no idea apparently exists.
I like how they write it in all caps.
Yeah, that's the old ring.
So, obviously, there's some people that don't want this to be released, and obviously, there's some people that think that the general public has a right to know.
I believe so. That's been my observations and my experience.
Well, that makes sense. You know, I mean, like when everybody says the CIA does this, like, okay, who?
Well,
who in the CIA?
I didn't
right?
finish though the part, right? So if they're not here for friend, if it's not friendly,
right,
that leaves them neutral like us,
right, or benevolent.
Now, from a military perspective, and I just want to caveat, I don't agree with this, but I can respect the understanding. You, sir, are a general, and I say to you, you cannot prove that they're not here to do something bad. But what we do know is that they can interfere. They're very interested in our military capabilities, and they have interfered with our nuclear capabilities, right? Mm-hmm. From a military perspective, that looks an awful lot like something we call IPB, Initial Preparations of the Battle Space, or perhaps even ISR, Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance. Whenever we're going to go into a foreign country and invade, we do long-range surveillance. We want to know how the enemy operates, how they react. So even if there's a 2% chance, 5% chance that these things are here to do something malevolent, right? Mm-hmm. Then we probably should not tip our hands to the fact that we are aware of it publicly, because what happens the moment that the bad guys in a foreign country find our surveillance team over the border? We've got 12 hours. We got to invade, because the element of surprise is now over. So some may feel government, the mere fact of acknowledging this, if there is some sort of malintent, may push up artificially a clock that exists somewhere for these things to say, okay, the foolish humans are now, the cat's out of the bag. They know we're here. We need to go in now for whatever reason they may have. So that is the military mindset potentially of some of these individuals who want to keep this secret.
So they're about an actual invasion.
But they have to be. That is
right,
that is the role of our national security apparatus, right? Even if there's a 1% chance,
right,
they have to consider that in their planning and in their decision-making matrix. So again, going back to what I said, I respect that. I don't agree with it, but I can respect that. If that is the reason why, then I would say, okay, look, in your heart, you really do have the best interests of the American people. You are a patriot. I can accept that. Again, I don't think it's your decision to make. I think it needs to go to Congress. I think it needs to go to the president. Let the American people decide. I think America can handle the truth.
And once you were there. You're basically there. You had to start asking questions like, did you wait a while? Like, how long did you ask for? You're like, hey, what do you guys know?
Yeah. Well, for a long time I waited. Very rarely. I looked for openings. I looked for opportunities. So, for example, the stigma is so great that you're reluctant, obviously, to raise that issue. A couple times there were some natural opportunities. So one of my colleagues, intelligence committee, was going to Hawaii for some oversight trips, meetings, and he went to the Maui Space Optical Tracking Facility. And I said to him, while you're there, why don't you just check and see, do they ever see anything weird they can't explain and so forth? So he did, and Pete called me up and said, you wouldn't believe this, I've got this videotape here, and it shows these weird things. And so I talked to the Air Force. They sent the tape to us. Turns out it was totally unclassified. I showed it to Senator Cohen and some others, and it ended up on national TV, actually, but didn't generate any further response. Everybody just kind of threw their hands up in the air and said, well, that's interesting, but we don't know what to do with it. It was Ted Koppel's Nightline show that this played on. It showed sort of 5 objects moving parallel to the ground, possibly in formation. They're in the atmosphere because they're burning, they're interacting with something, plasma coming off them, which wouldn't presumably be happening in space, but they seem to be too slow to be meteorites. So it was defying and difficult to explain, never did get an answer. Occasionally something like that would happen, but by and large, the issue almost never arose.
The issue is a weird issue because if you bring it up in the wrong company or at the wrong time, you could be dismissed as a loon. Did you feel that when you were there? Like as a person who had a budding interest in unidentified flying objects and what have you, did you feel like this is a politically risky thing to discuss, especially to discuss like in serious terms? Like, do you believe in these things? Like, what are they? What do we know? Was that an issue?
Absolutely. I concealed my interest in the topic for years and very carefully, and confided to a few trustworthy friends, had a few heart-to-heart talk, a couple individuals when I found a fellow traveler who was interested in this topic, but by and large, absolutely wanted to conceal that and not reveal that.
No Clinton?
No, I did not.
He would be the guy that I would go to.
There was a
a
request that came to me once that I think was from President Clinton, and it was one of the astronauts claimed to have seen a UFO out at Edwards Air Force Base, and it was videotaped, he said, and he described this in his memoir and wanted the president to get hold of the tape of the video. And Secretary Cohn came back to the Pentagon from a meeting, and a message came down to me to go to try to find this tape. And unfortunately, there was I got nowhere with that. Force was adamant that there was no such tape, there was no such information. Anything they had on UFOs had been destroyed. So I had one of these situations that's very common in this area, which is you have just two apparently credible sources, but utterly conflicting, irreconcilable information, which seems to happen often in this field.
Being as you were in government and very close to literally the machine that runs the world, what's the general perception when people are discussing these things in Washington? What's the general perception of what's going on with these things?
I'm happy to say that it's changed. That perception has changed considerably in the last few years. People feel like they have permission to talk about it.
When did you?
And after the New York Times article and subsequent press, beginning in 2017, December 2017, and that sort of gave people permission to talk about this. And I've actually had Pentagon friends who said, this is kind of cool. We don't have to go in the closet to talk about this anymore.
What do you kept it in the closet before? Like, when did the stigma start? And do you think this was like intentionally sort of set up this way?
It was. It was the Robertson Panel Commission, 1953, and they concluded during those Cold War days that this was a potential threat to national security because UFO reports might overwhelm our air defense and communication system, and that the Soviets might spook the public and somehow manipulate this issue. So they actually advocated in writing that this issue be debunked and discredited, and the government went ahead and did so extremely succsually, unfortunately.
And this started with the Project Blue Book, correct?
Correct. It was during that era.
So what was the gentleman's name that was running Project Blue Book again?
Well, they were the astronomer, Alan Hynek.
Hynek.
Yeah.
And Hynek went on to become a believer. So he started debunking and was told, essentially, the way he reported it was that he was told to kind of debunk every single case. Everything he could find, whether it was swamp gas or, ball lightning, find some way to explain this away. But then once he left Project Blue Book, he started openly discussing these cases, and he started discussing his own belief.
Correct. And he felt badly burned as well because he was trying to carry out his mandate that the Air Force had given him. And as you may recall, one instance he went to Michigan and famously declared that the people of Michigan were misconstruing swamp gas for flying objects.
Yeah. And
so Gerald Ford, who was representing that district, got incensed, as did the local population, and Congress took a fleeting interest in the topic. And Dr. Hynek was very embarrassed, and understandably so. It was really insulting to these people who had very clear sight of these objects. So he did eventually change his view publicly and was very critical of Project Blue Book.
Was all this stuff, like being inside the government and knowing how prevalent these sightings are and how credible some of them are. Was it frustrating to you to be a part of this and to know that this information is kind of being squashed and distorted? And
it's interesting that what happened actually is that I wasn't seeing information squashed or distorted in the Pentagon or the intelligence community. I saw one instance of a very technical, very classified report that explained away some sightings that nobody even knew were being reported otherwise. It was kind of odd to see this explanation from about an incident had not been otherwise reported. But generally, this was some military pilots doing reconnaissance missions who were seeing some very unusual lights. And the Directorate of Science and Technology at CIA did a extensive analysis and found a plausible explanation for what they had seen that was not extraterrestrial. And so they published an article on that. It was a good article, a good piece of research. But that was about the only time I ever saw anything that in writing about this subject, which the government said it wasn't following, it wasn't interested in. And I had friends who would call me up. I had a Navy friend pilot, and he said, you wouldn't believe what happened at our base today. There was a plane up and there was a UFO flying around it and it landed. And he knew I was interested in this from college days. And he called me up with his hair on fire to tell me about this incident. But that kind of thing was not going up through channels. So people in the Pentagon, to the best of my knowledge, all the way up to the SecDef, were not hearing or seeing any of these reports. It wasn't until I met Lou Elizondo and his group and some of the Navy guys and talked to the pilots about what was happening on the East Coast from 2015 onward and the Nimitz incident that I found out that this activity had been going on and just wasn't being reported.
Was it that no one in the Pentagon was seeking this out? There wasn't a mandate to go look for it? There wasn't a department that was designed to seek these things out? I mean, what was the reason why it wasn't getting all the way to the Pentagon?
Well, specifically in the case of the Navy in 2016, just today, I believe, or yesterday, DOD announced that they're going to do an IG investigation of this phenomenon.
What's IG mean?
Issue. The Inspector General.
Okay.
Sorry. So there's going to be an internal investigation at DOD of how they handled this UFO issue. And I believe it's not clear yet. They just made this announcement, and their motives and what sparked this are still a little bit uncertain. But it appears they're going to focus on this issue of how did this fall through the cracks for years? How is it that these guys are flying around, seeing this stuff, it's on the radar, and nobody in command is being notified? Policymakers, the Secretary of Defense himself, Congress, etc. It was just going into the ether. I mean, there was no effort made to get support to any of those guys. And that's when I, kind of bullshit flag and said, this is unacceptable. And so that's when I started jumping into this.
Do you think because of the stigma that's attached to the subject that they just didn't bother bringing it to their superiors?
Absolutely, yeah. People were afraid to report it. And as we saw in the Nimitz case some years earlier in 2004.
Explain what we're talking about. We're talking about Commander David Fravor and his sightings off the coast of San Diego, the tic-tac shaped UFO that moved at extraordinary speed with no known propulsion system. They tracked it on radar. It was actively jamming their radar. It went to their predetermined point where they were supposed to scramble.
Point.
Yeah. And so somehow or another, it had information as to where they were traveling to. Mm-hmm. Extraordinary capability. Went from 80,000 feet above sea level to 1 in less than a second. They have no idea what it is, what it does. And then the people on the Nimitz were saying they had been seeing these things.
Correct. On the Princeton. And when Dave and the other F-18 landed, there was no interest on the part of the intelligence officers of doing anything really other than but ridiculing them. Yeah. So they came out, with tin hats on and foil hats, and they were playing in Black song or something.
Yeah.
But that case was phenomenal because there were so many witnesses and so many different sensor systems that were verifying independently the visual reporting. So there were multiple radars, there were infrared systems, perfect viewing conditions, broad daylight, middle of the afternoon, multiple aircraft, and all of the data agrees that these craft are doing that we thought were impossible.
There was also the thing that led them to see it in the first place, was that he thought there was something under the surface of the ocean.
Well, what happened was vectored, he and his man were vectored to intercept that Tic Tac at that point. When they arrived and looked down, they saw it moving around and they saw the water roiled. In fact, I think first they saw the water before they saw the Tic Tac. They saw something unusual. It looked like white water breaking on a reef kind of thing.
Right.
And then they saw the Tic Tac, and then Dave dove down to get close to it, and it reacted to his presence, turned around, viewed him, and then started taking countermeasures. And it was clear to the pilots in both aircraft that this thing maintained a dominant position throughout their engagement with it, that it could easily have done what it wanted to them. They had no chance really of getting behind it or getting the upper hand in that engagement.
Then when he went and reported this, that's when things get weird, right? Because people have to dissect this information and look at this guy, Commander Fravor, a very respected guy, not the type of person who makes up wacky stories. Then when it's supported by all this data, I think that's probably one of the biggest ones that led to being included in the New York Times, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
It was so credible. And then there was the Go Fast video and the FLIR video and all these other videos that show these things moving in extraordinary ways.
Correct. And they're authentic. The Defense Department acknowledged those videos.
Why do you think that?
I didn't do it initially, but ultimately they didn't have much choice. And I think the reason that they finally did is because we had taken this issue to Congress. I contacted some former colleagues. He said, "You guys really ought to look at this. I mean, it sounds crazy, but give me a chance here." And so a couple of them started taking interest. Some of the first started meeting with some of the pilots. When they started requesting briefings, that coming from the Senate Armed Services and Intelligence, that went up the flagpole to the top, and the Navy brass and the senior Pentagon civilians in the Office of the Secretary of Defense became aware that these committees are taking an official interest now. And, we can't fool around with this. And we have to really be straight and put it out there. So at that point, they couldn't tell them in private, yeah, this is real, and then publicly deny it.
Yeah.
So they came clean.
This is the great shift, right? The great shift in our time from UFOs being ridiculed, and being these silly things that tinfoil hat conspiracy theory people believe in, to the Defense Department agreeing that this is an issue.
That's correct. Very interesting to me. I saw your interview with Elon Musk, and he seemed unaware as
he's an listen.
Well,
he's covering
maybe
up.
He's part of the cover
Yeah.
because he seemed unaware that his own government has taken the position that UFOs are real.
I got in trouble because we smoked pot.
I heard about
when he got in trouble. He was like, his top secret clearance was in trouble, and there was a lot going on. And I think he's trying to play it straight and narrow when he's around me now.
Okay,
like aliens, outrageous.
I would advise that getting high program would not be a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's the move. Don't do it. If you want to drink, that's probably better.
I'll stick
move.
to the coffee.
Okay. We want to be clear here, right? We want to be clear-headed when we discuss this because it's such an easily ridiculed thing. It's one of those things like psychics and Bigfoot. You bring it up and people just automatically start rolling their eyes. But statistically, if you just look at the size of the universe and you look at the fact that there's so many Goldilocks zone planets that they've already discovered, and then also the wide variety of life that exists in various conditions on Earth, who knows, right? And who knows whether or not these things are living in the ocean? This is what's bizarre to me, is there's a lot of these sightings. The one in Hawaii recently, and there's another one that Jeremy Corbell leaked, this photograph that shows something disappearing into the ocean. There seems to be multiple sightings and multiple witnesses that discuss things going into the ocean.
That is absolutely true. In terms of backing up on your question there a little bit, people ask me, do you believe in aliens? And that's really not the question or the issue for most people.
Mm-hmm.
There are probably, in an infinite universe, an infinite number of alien civilizations.
Right.
The question is, could we ever communicate with them or have contact, right? So what's interesting about that to me, in part, is that we have NASA spending billions to try to find alien life, even if it's microbial. We have Yuri Milner spending hundreds of millions and supporting the SETI program. And meanwhile, we have these things flying around our atmosphere that we're seeing on the radar that kind of look and act like what you might expect if somebody sent a probe. If somebody followed the trajectory we're on ourselves today. And they're doing incredible things that we don't understand. And yet the scientific community and the government have not wanted to dare to ask the question in this context that they ask every day in this other context with NASA and spend billions of dollars on. And there's no crosstalk. You know, scientifically, we would expect actually they're listening for these signals from outer space, but it's more efficient to send probes and it's safer. And that's what we are doing ourselves.
Right.
And so that's what would probably be more likely. A probe would give more information. It wouldn't reveal the location or the source of the civilization that was sending it. It's more dynamic and versatile. It could get closer to the target, et cetera. There's all kinds of advantages, including energy. And it would be easy for a civilization more advanced than ours, we're getting on the cusp of this ourselves, to create, using artificial intelligence, probes that were self-sufficient, launch them out in whatever numbers, let them go see what they find and report back. And that's entirely plausible. There's no scientific reason for thinking that that couldn't happen. Moreover, if even one spacefaring society started to expand outward as we are in our galaxy, in the Milky Way, within a tiny fraction of the lifetime of the Milky Way, they could explore and colonize the entire galaxy. So even if they haven't achieved superluminal travel, they can't violate the speed of light and go faster than that. If they went, say, 20% the speed of light and just continued to steadily expand their domain and explore outward in the space of 2 or 3 million years, they could have gone from one end of the galaxy to the other. So, it's not an unreasonable proposition. It's a question of getting the facts. And it's about time some of us think that we take it seriously and start looking at it.
Do most people who look at this believe that this is some sort of a probe? Like when you look at the Tic Tac video?
Well, Dave himself says it's not from around here. It wasn't made here, not made by us. And he doesn't propose to say where it's from. Some people suspect, as you suggest, that it could be ultra-terrestrial. It could be something inherently from our planet under the ocean that's been here for a long, long time. Perhaps a way station that some AI established that just it's a waypoint here and it monitors what's going on this planet and stays under the ocean, comes out, looks around, reports back, and just has been doing that for thousands of years. But not aliens coming and going. There's all manner of theories. That's one of them. But I would say that on the inside, the people close to this in the Pentagon, they face we all face, which is what hypothesis can explain what we're seeing that is prosaic, that doesn't involve either extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials or something like that. It's very hard for us to believe that the Chinese or the Russians are that far ahead of us in such basic technology, such fundamental technology. Perhaps it's true, and that's got its own set of problems, but either way, we need to get to the bottom of it. That's my position, at least.
There's some of these things that it's not outside the realm of possibility that's a drone, like the most recent video, the pyramid-shaped objects that are flying around. Like you've seen that, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What was your take on those things?
I want to see the rest of the data. They've got radar data on that. And from the radar data, they should be able to gain some real insights as to where these things are coming from, going to, trajectories, speeds, all that kind of thing.
That hasn't been released?
That has not been released. They're still analyzing that. I don't think that they will comment publicly on that, unfortunately. But they do have that information and other information. So we should be able to gain some insights. It's entirely possible they are drones. Tyler Rogaway is a analyst of aviation issues who works for the Zone. Has written a very lengthy piece making that assertion. Could be right. I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see. That's why we need more data.
What do you say?
Well, the duration of flight was far longer than drones routinely can.
What was the duration?
Hours. So typically, if it's an electric drone, it has a very short flight time. These ships were 100 miles off the coast, conditions of low visibility. And so whoever was operating these things was traversing a long distance probably. There were only a few other ships in the area, and they know what that they were operating these craft. So they were in the air a long time. They were very rigorous in the manner in which they operated as a unit. They clearly intended to get our attention. They were operating in a manner that they were trying to provoke our air defense systems. See how we would react, maybe see what frequencies we start communicating on, what actions we take, and so forth. It's the kind of thing we sometimes do ourselves to potential areas to help game the situation out. So, I have a completely open mind on it. I just want to see the evidence, but there's some features of this that, if they're drones, they're probably more advanced than anything we have.
Now, one of them was flashing, right? Jamie, see if you can find that video. Is that your breathing? It is. I was trying to figure out what that noise was. See if you can find that video.
I've had my COVID test. It's not
No,
bad.
I don't think there's anything wrong with you. I was trying to figure out what that
the
noise
one where
was.
like the flashing light.
Yes.
That one. Okay.
Yeah. Have you seen?
I've seen that, and it looks like it's flashed sort of the way an airplane would.
Right. That's
at the
why.
same rate, and but what's odd about that is you're in a restricted military airspace. Commercial aircraft have transponders. You would know if they were commercial aircraft. They're looking at the radar picture, so they would know from that if it's a commercial aircraft. It's hard to understand if it was a commercial aircraft of some kind, or even a private plane, why they wouldn't be able to identify it.
Yeah. Well, the flashing. I mean, yeah. See, you can see it here. So this is the leaked footage, courtesy of Jeremy Corbell. So, like, you see it. Now, either it's reflecting something that's flashing off the ship, or it's flashing itself. And there was 3 of them that they tracked, right?
I think that's the right number, yeah.
The thing about these things is, yeah, it's extraordinary. It's crazy looking. It's weird to see these pyramids floating through the sky. But they're not moving like the Tic Tac. It's not doing something that we can't do. It's just, you see them move around. It's really weird. But it's
not definitive evidence of anything at this point. It's strange. It's peculiar that it's happening around a warship, and that our guys don't know what it is. And it looks like some of these things are leaving the water, which is really peculiar. So it's an example of the kind of thing that we just haven't been looking at that's going on. We've been blowing off.
Right.
And now we're finally getting some traction and getting the government to say, we probably really pay attention to this.
Do you think that there's more frequent sightings, or do you think they're being reported more now?
There are certainly more reports coming, civilian and military. The technology that we have today is leaps and bounds even a few years ago in terms of resolution, distance, range, all those kinds of things. The latest generation of radars that are being deployed are a huge step forward from what was in the fleet just a few years ago. So that is probably leading to some reporting that we didn't have before, things that were out there, but the radar cross-section was so low they weren't appearing on people's scopes. So I think it's probably a mixture of things, but what is concerning in part is that some of this activity is more in-your-face kind of stuff. It's like not elusive, on the edge, you see it and it flies away. It's coming to a nuclear power station and buzzing around it and staying there. It's coming around these warships and making a point of being seen. It's coming to a Air Force base in Guam and doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So that's new, and that's a little concerning.
And haven't there been reports of them showing up around missiles and doing something with the launch codes, or stopping the power from working in these places, or manipulation of the power systems, almost to let you know?
Yes, this is one of the most provocative and fascinating and important stories in this whole area of UFOs and national security. And we have retired Air Force officers who've testified to this, and there are FOIA documents that support these claims. But the Air Force has never been asked by Congress or anyone to address this. They've never acknowledged it. There's an opportunity to do that now, and I think it's long overdue. This is stunning if it's true. I mean, this is the backbone of our nuclear deterrence strategy. It's really the crown jewels of our freedom and independence and ability to deter nuclear powers like Russia and China. You know, this is kind of the ultimate insurance policy militarily that we have. And if someone can come in there and turn these things off, that's just shocking, absolutely shocking. So it's because of the stigma, Congress has been unwilling even to ask the question, even in private, even though this is very well documented, and these people have come out in their retired, uniform things and with their documentation showing where they were assigned. And in one of these cases, out at Malmstrom Air Force Base, I believe it was, there's a good book because the local sheriff was responding to so many calls from civilians in the area to UFOs that were being seen and encountered. He co-authored a book on what was happening. So there's a lot of data about this, but yet there's no official confirmation that that occurred.
Yeah, the sheer volume, I would like to know whether or not they are increasing in volume or whether or not it is just an increase in our ability to detect them. And we don't really know, right? It's because it's been 2017, so it's not that long ago, 4 years when it really started being something that people were willing to take seriously, or willing to, because of the New York Times article and because there's just a few videos that are pretty extraordinary. The Go Fast video, when you hear the pilots going, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
And you're watching that thing buzz across the water with no heat signature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In terms of reporting, there has definitely been an increase, a surge the last 12 or so months. And you see this on the public side with organizations that track these things, the Mutual UFO Network and so forth. They've had a surge of maybe 20%. Some people think, well, maybe it's COVID, more people are outside looking at the night sky. That could be some of it. There are more reports that are coming with video and photographs these days. If you look at these websites, Fork and MUFON, from, say, 10 years ago, not so many people had cell phones in their pockets. Routinely now, you'll see very strange photographs and videos. Frequently, most of the time, there's a prosaic explanation, but not always. And my sense is that there probably a little bit of both going on. More activity, some of it's a little bolder than we've seen past, and but also better instrumentation to record this. Another thing that's happening, certainly on the government side, this is the big thing, is that people are less afraid to report it. So there was a lot of stuff going on. We don't know how much because nobody was reporting it. And I've been in meetings with people at the Pentagon with guys who were commander of an AWACS aircraft, for example. And they'd say, yeah, we saw some really weird stuff, but we weren't telling anybody about it. We tore up the files. Guys at the National Security Agency or other places who said, I kept a book of, anomalies, weird things, and then I didn't turn it over to my replacement. I just tore it up. So we have blinded ourselves. We've done this to ourselves and playing catch up now.
Fortunately, some people are full of shit, and that muddies the water, right? Some people do make aliens. So we've been talking for a long time, but I really want to talk to you about this. What evidence do you think is the best evidence in terms of what physical evidence? Is it just video? Is it just photographs? Or do you think there's physical evidence that either our government or some other government has somewhere that could show beyond a shadow of a doubt? Because I know Jacques Vallée, who was on the podcast before, discussed we were talking about specific metals that had been examined, that these alloys, that if they had been produced in mass, it would be billions and billions of dollars for these alloys. And that this was, although not evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, seemed to indicate that because of the examination of these alloys, that this is not something that's mass produced in this country right now, or in any country right now. Like, that this is something that if it was done, it would cost an insane amount of money to create, but yet here it is.
Right. Yeah. So people have pieces of things that are like that have been, I don't know, I assume they've gone through electron microscope for a look-see, but they are very unique in how thin they are, how many layers of material they have, and the view, the opinions are that we can't make them.
And that these things have been recovered from crash sites?
Apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah.
But that is part of the problem, right? Is that there's so little real concrete information. Like there's no consortium of scientists that's aligned together that's saying this is 100% from another planet. We've all examined this. We've got together with the people at Stanford and we've done these tests and this is what we know and here's the press conference, right? That's never happened yet.
Well, so far there have been investigations on these materials, and they're anomalous.
Yeah. Do you think that's
something that's part of the kitchen of the UFO?
Right.
Some bowl that they ate out of. Who knows? And because how can you tell about a craft just because of one little piece?
Right. Other than Bob Lazar's experiences, which, he has, of course, the most spectacular experience. I actually haven't been there at S4. I wish there was a way we could convince whoever's in charge of that to allow people to film this, to allow people to examine this, to bring in the scientific community, if it is a real thing. But the other thing about the Lazar story was that element 115. What are your thoughts on that? This was the idea that there was some spectacular element that was a new version of propulsion. So instead of shooting something out of the back end, it was literally bending gravity.
Yeah. I don't know enough about the comment. I mean, I'm not saying about anything to do with disparagingly with Bob Lazar at all. I'm just talking about the element 115. I have no understanding of its properties and what it can do or not. I don't have any information like I do on these other subjects, survival of consciousness.
Yeah.
I don't have any information about element 115.
Did you talk about it?
Oh, no. No, the conversations about it were somebody had taken his and he was kind of regretful that he had let go of it in some way and he wanted to get it back and
this was when he was at S4.
Yeah. So, but I don't remember much about conversations about what all of its properties were and that kind of thing. Did you bounce a ping pong ball and it didn't come back to you straight? It took off in a different direction or something, or a candle flame, I don't know about those things. I don't know. But I think that I had something else I was going to say and I forget now on that 115. Oh well, I forget what I was going to say.
His diagrams of the UFO of the.
I know what it was. Okay, getting back to these kinds of treasure. You were talking earlier that really what ought to happen is there ought to be a major program where you're gathering all the best scientists to analyze the hell out of all these materials that have been retrieved.
Yeah.
But the problem is, a lot of this stuff purportedly is in corporate hands.
Corporate hands.
And some in government hands. Okay? And it's come to be kind of corporate treasure and national treasure at the same time because there's a relationship between a company and the government that has this kind of treasure. it's a national kind of treasure. No pun intended there, but I mean it's a in a sense it's a national treasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also a phenomenal treasure that isn't ever understood. And so the problem is, it may be the most precious thing around. You know, you don't have diamonds that are more valuable.
Right.
You know,
Especially if it is from an
Pound for
extra craft. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's drug out every 10 years, looked at to see if there's anything that that has improved in 10 years on the understanding of X, Y, and Z that makes sense, or has something else shifted? Has something else happened in the last 10 years that could make a difference on trying to understand the material or craft or whatever?
So you think that's what they do with it? They drag it out when technology is advanced and say, what do you think now?
It's back in storage because not enough has changed. Not enough has changed. You know, we were talking about the speed of our technology, but it's all relative, right?
Right.
So this technology is so much more advanced. You could do 10 years for 100 years and still be way short.
Now, how do you know this stuff is in corporate hands? Is this just hearsay? Is this the discussions you've had? I would imagine, because you're so open about your interests, that in your conversations with other people, whether it's at NASA or there's got to be other folks that also have similar interests that come to you and want to talk to you about these things.
Yeah, so there's a community of people, not necessarily NASA people, but that have been trailing this for years. George Knapp, for example. And so it's not poorly known that certain corporations are involved.
It's not poor, so it's kind of common knowledge.
Certain
Some people,
folks,
yeah. The
yeah.
corporation involved because they recovered it or they acquired it, and that if they were able to mass produce whatever these alloys are or whatever these particular the properties of these metals are, there would be obviously some amazing commercial value for this stuff.
It'd be too precious for that.
What about bodies?
Now, you talking about the Las Vegas desert or what?
What about alien bodies? Like Sinatra's enemies?
Splashes like meat at 1 o'clock in the morning?
No,
Of a cliff?
I'm talking like alien bodies. That was one of the weirdest stories about Roswell, was that they had not just recovered a crashed UFO, but they had recovered these alien bodies.
What do you think of Jackie Gleason's wife's story about he and Richard Nixon?
Yeah.
Nixon taking him to the base and showing Jackie.
Yeah, that I remember the story. I had a friend who knew Jackie Gleason, and he said that Jackie Gleason had recreated in his backyard what he saw, what Nixon showed him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that apparently he was so blown away by Nixon. I guess they were drinking. This is the legend.
Yeah.
Nixon and Jackie Gleason were drinking. Jackie Gleason's a fucking hilarious guy. Probably loved to drink. I mean, definitely loved to drink, and probably so fun to drink with. Him and Nixon are talking, and Nixon says, "You want to see a UFO?" and takes Jackie Gleason to wherever it was, Hangar 18 or wherever it was where they had this UFO, and shows him, and apparently changed Jackie Gleason's life, and he couldn't stop talking about it. And what I had heard was that he had it recreated in his backyard. This thing. See if there's a story.
That's a
about
powerful
that.
impact,
Close
isn't
to
it?
the story I'm looking through.
Yeah, yeah.
So he saw something.
Yeah, listen, I'd be friends with Nixon just for that.
It wasn't because of the booze, right?
No, I don't think it was because of the booze. I mean, look, I am as ridiculous as it sounds for someone who doesn't believe in psychics. I'm a believer. I want to believe. You know, that's probably part of my problem is that I want to believe.
Sure.
And also, there's so many planets. There's so many stars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the universe is littered with planets. And the idea that this is it, That you and me, this is as good as it gets.
Well, the odds of that are 1,000,000,000,000.
yeah, they're not that
I mean,
good.
It's off the
Yeah.
table. The odds are so unlikely.
And then when you take into account people like Commander David Fravor, who I've had the pleasure of sitting down and talking to and listening to his explanation, and then when you realize that the way his vehicle, the vehicle that he observed, moved mirrors what Bob Lazar talked about from 1990. Now we're talking, we're in this weird realm of like, huh. So I'm a believer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if the government has it, I mean, shit, in the 1960s, when Nixon was president and him and Jackie Gleason are partying, that's a credible story, or
I
at
think
least
so.
a fun one.
I always thought it was.
You find anything?
I can't find the thing about the backyard because it just keeps bringing up his UFO house he had in New York, which is like a UFO-shaped house and a bunch of interesting, cool shit inside of
Oh, whoa.
But this story-
Maybe
Boy, he
that's-
was
what
influenced,
you're
wasn't
saying.
Maybe that's part of it. Okay. Upon his arrival, arms took Gleason to a building in a remote location on the site. There, Gleason, who harbored an intense interest in UFOs, saw the embalmed bodies of 4 alien beings 2 feet long with small bald heads and big ears. He was told nothing about the circumstances of their recovery. He swore his wife to secrecy, but after their divorce, Beverly freely discussed the story. That bitch. He started secrecy. That's what happens when you divorce them.
it. That's what I find.
In the mid-1980s, when ufologist Larry Bryant sued the U.S. government to get it to reveal its UFO secrets, he tried without success to subpoena Gleason. Holy shit. Look at this. So that's the thing in his house.
Yeah.
That's his yard. That's his UFO house. So he built a house so that was what they were talking about. It wasn't that he just built a UFO. He built a fucking house shaped like a UFO. Where is that?
New York.
Is that still there?
You ought to buy
is
it,
for
Joe.
That's what I'm
Sale.
talking
You ought
about,
to
bro.
buy it.
That's what I'm talking about. It
Here's
was
the-
for sale.
Well, here's the realty.com thing for it.
12 million.
12 million. Gee, oh, that's a little steep for a fucking.
Yeah, it's
goofy
probably
looking circle
negotiable.
house.
You could negotiate.
Must be
that.
negotiable, but it's Jackie Gleason's. It's probably just because it's Jackie Gleason's. Listen, The Hustler is one of my all-time
Oh,
favorite
yeah.
movies. I'm a pool player,
Yeah.
and so that movie, I've seen that movie literally probably 100 times because they used to put it on in the executive billiards in White Plains, New York. They would play it late at night all the time. So we would be playing pool. They'd put The Hustler on. Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
Such a great movie, and Jackie Gleason was amazing in it, and a serious role too, not a comedic role at all.
Yeah.
I mean,
he was
that
great
was-
in The Honeymooners, wasn't he?
He was great in everything.
Oh,
Jackie
it was
Gleason was
true.
great in Smoking the Bandit.
Yeah.
He was just great.
Yeah,
I love that guy, but I love him even more because he's a UFO freak.
Close, and I dismissed it. Like this, like how fast can you say how did?
It just always seems like if someone's telling you about something like that, like you would have heard about it.
Absolutely, I can't tell you, Joe, how quickly I dismissed it, and I didn't look into it till 2011. Okay, so that's what happened. I get invited by this guy AJ Javar to a place called Peruíbe in Brazil, and I'm speaking at a conference about a film I did called I Know What I Saw, and this guy called Jeff Sagansky was very high up on the food chain in the entertainment, and he's been kind of like my mentor, and opening doors for me over the years. And I've asked him over a period of time, like, why are you so kind to me? He's a very wealthy guy in New York, and he goes, Jackie Gleason told me one time that these things were real. Don't listen to anybody else. I know for a fact. And so when I saw you as an independent, struggling young filmmaker, I always wanted to lend a helping hand. By the way, you're going to Brazil. You got to look into that Varginha case. And I thought, oh, God, not again, right? Swear to God. So I was like, well, I had a lot of respect for Jeff Sagansky. I mean, you can look him up. The guy's very famous. I mean, he's big time. And I said, oh, yeah, sure, Jeff, look into that for you while I'm in Brazil. And just to be nice, right? But in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm not wasting 1 second on that stupid case. Like, seriously, I'm telling you, honest to God truth. And it was 2011. So I go to Brazil with no intention of looking into it. Zero. Okay? There wasn't even a question. And it just so happens that nuclear physicist and UFO researcher Stanton Friedman, rest in peace, and he's there at the conference. And somehow the case gets brought up. It wasn't about that case, but it gets brought up. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was in Brazil and I went down. And he's one of the smarter guys. Stanton Friedman, he is not an idiot. It's one of the reasons why him and Don Schmidt and Kevin Randall, one of the reasons why we're even talking about Roswell. And he's like, oh, yeah, I was here when that happened. I met some of the witnesses. So then that kind of piqued my interest. okay, well, got Stanton. I can't completely dismiss from Stanton. Then I met a couple at the conference. I thought, oh, okay, well, I piqued my interest, I got to be honest with you. And that's how it all started. And that was like in 2011. And I was going to include a segment of it in the phenomenon.
The interview is that, did you get that?
I got that in 2013.
Because he died when?
He died like years ago. He died in the airport. You know, he told me, he's like, James, I'm retiring. I can't do this anymore. I live in Canada in this remote spot. There are no direct flights, and I'm always running in the airports trying to get my connecting flight, and I can't do it anymore. And then he retired a year or so, and then he had to get back out, and he died in the airport running for a connecting flight.
Oh, he had a heart,
attack. What he predicted.
God damn it.
I know, right? And I just like...
He was a fascinating guy because he was an outspoken critic of Lazar, and I always wanted to get the two of them together. I was like, I wanted to see, because one of the things that the critics of Lazar always bring up is his education at MIT. I can explain that to you off air in the way that he explained it to me, and it might make sense. But I think that it's hard to dismiss that he worked at that lab. Los Alamos Labs had him on their list of people that worked there. Like, he was on the whatever that thing is that they have with all the list of employees. He was in it. Like, he worked there. He knew all the people that worked there. He knew how it was set up. When they took him there, he knew the security guys. He knew the machines that they used to. They had some sort of a scanner that measured the length of your digits exactly. So you put your hand on this thing. And he talked about it, and everybody's like, what? That doesn't even exist. And then years later, people got photographs of this thing.
George Knapp said he was at Los Alamos laboratory, like, just right through. Well, let me tell you, this is something that came in yesterday that I can, for the first time ever, talk about in full detail. I've talked about, I did a couple of podcasts where I gave, I don't know, in 1993, 94, I was my first film. I talked about it earlier. It's called UFOs. It's so 90s, but whatever. UFOs, 50 years of denial. It's like 80 years of denial now. And I was interviewing this guy out at Area 50. He was lived on the outskirts of the base in a place called near the Little Alien in Rachel, Nevada. And this guy's name is Chuck Clark. And he had found all these, and the relevance of what I'm telling you will come to light in a second here. He'd found all these vantage points on the mountain tops that he could spy on the base down below with high-powered telescopes with cameras. And he was taking photographs of different exotic airplanes coming out of the hangars and stuff like that. He wrote a book called UFO Area 51 Handbook and Guide or something. He was an amateur astronomer. And he had a couple of really cool sightings, Area 51, that were really, like, he saw these, it's in my movie, he saw these lights doing things that didn't be doing, right? Like traversing and then stopping and then taking off really fast. So anyway, I'm covering his story, because I was, in the early 90s, the Bob Lazar thing was everywhere. I was making a doc on UFOs, so I was kind of looking into it. Yeah. I wouldn't just categorically, but I'll look into it. So I was looking into it. And I'm going back and forth out there for many times. And then one day, I get a phone call from Chuck Clark. And I'm back at home in Northern California, and this is kind of a long way away. And he goes, James, I got something you need to see. I said, okay, well, what is it? I can't tell you. But I was going to hit the floor when you see it. I was like, that good? He goes, oh, yeah, that good. I said, I'm canceling all my plans, jumped in my car, and I drove straight through to Rachel, Nevada. I get to his house. This must have been, I'm going to guesstimate 95, 94, 95. Get to his house, and he's got a double wide right near the Little Alien. And he pops in the chest tape. I was like, and it was like two guys on the quintessential road trip just to Area 50, the surrounding areas, Rachel and the extraterrestrial lonely highway, and they're goofing off the alien, taking videos of each other, just the typical road trip out to Area 51, right?
Blair Witch Project.
Totally. And then they're goofing off next to the photographs of the alien and the crashed disc, and then they're inside the Little Alien, and I'm like, okay, where's this going? Then all of a sudden, and I saw it with my own eyes, all of a sudden, the car's parked, and it's out by the black box in the desert, and it's dusk. And the camera is on the armrest between the two seats, and it's slightly cocked, like it's not level, and it's filming the dashboard and the screen, the windshield, and there's two guys in there, sound like you can't see them, sounding like they're trying to crawl under the. I mean, they're freaking out, and then one of them goes, "It's over the top of us! It's over the top of us!" And I'm like, "What is this video? Like, what am I? You know?" Then all of a sudden, the car lights up on the side, but the source of light is above it. Like if you can imagine, I've never seen anything like this. If you could put a pendulum with a light source above a vehicle, like above the car, like this, but very slow and fluid motion, like rocking back and forth, the shadows and the lights on the inside of the car are doing this really eerily. You've never seen anything like it. I'm looking like, my God, what is going on? And they're very scared. And one kid, who's the younger of the two, is like, I'm getting out. I'm getting out of the car. Stay in the car. It's over the top. It's the fucking car. He goes, no, I'm getting out. And he gets out, and he videotapes a disc that was so low you could have hit a rock. And I'm looking at this thing like, that's what all the witnesses tried to describe. That's like, if you could imagine the skin on the craft glowing like phosphorus on a beach, that's what it, like the skin was alive. And it had like a yellowy orange color to it. But you could clearly see it was a disc. I mean, it was not an orb. It was a disc. But the metal lit up like it was alive. I'd never seen anything like it. And it just wobbled like it was stable, like doing this. And the camera guy goes, oh my God. And then something about the batteries, and then boom, it shuts off. I looked over at Chuck Clark. I said, this is the video everyone's been waiting for. Unbelievable.
How do you? This is real.
If it's not real,
all my BS meters are going off right now.
Dude, fair enough. I get it. Fair enough. I saw this video with my own eyes.
Of course, it's a video though.
Yes, for sure. No question
And
about it.
No fake videos.
Absolutely. It was 1995, and they could have. But why?
1995 is hard.
Yeah. But it's never been released to the public. Why would you create a fake video?
What year did you see
I
it?
saw it like 95.
And so it's out there somewhere.
No, it's not. It's in Clark's got a copy of it. The story continues.
No, but I mean, someone has it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, in fact, if those boys that shot it are out there, please come forward. Like, please.
How come it's acquired this?
So I said to Chuck, oh, my God, this is great. I can use it in my movie. Right? Great. He goes, oh, no, they're terrified. I said, well, look, just put me in touch with the guys. You don't have to, like, give.
But wait a minute. They're terrified. They give it to a guy who lives in a trailer?
I'm just telling you.
Do you know what I'm saying, though?
Absolutely.
Hey, I'm really terrified. I don't want it now, but I'm going to give it to you.
I get it.
Guy who lives in a trailer.
I get it.
What does this guy do for a living?
He's a former military guy, and he's retired. But
Just a
but sit
military
with me
guy
for a
on the
minute
trailer.
here.
This guy's a Fed.
So
that
I
he
know.
doesn't even live there.
But no,
he probably put on some fucking
Okay, so the
overalls
story
to hang
gets
out
better.
with you.
The story
Is
gets
his name
better.
Ray Epps?
Joe, believe me, I get it, but the story gets better. Sit tight.
Okay.
Because I went on a couple of podcasts and I said, screw it, I don't care anymore. I see video. I'm going to start talking about it. Chuck Clark, if you ask me again after like 10 years or 12 years, I'm never talking to you again. So I was like, I of course asked him again. I said, I'll give you 30 grand for the video, and he's not talking to me. So I went on like Concrete Cast, and I went on this guy Julian Dorian's podcast, and I went on a bunch of other podcasts, and I gave the whole story. Let's let somebody else pick up the bun with it. I'm just telling you what I saw, okay? I get contacted a couple of years ago by a guy who goes, I saw that video too. Then another guy contacts me and he goes, I'm a private investigator and I find people. I said, well, his name's Chuck Clark. Go to it. So he finds him. Right at that time, I'm going on the Impulsive podcast with Logan Paul. And I tell Logan Paul the story, and he has exactly the same response you have. And I don't blame him, okay? I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I'm just telling you what I saw. It was very impressive what I saw. Very impressive. If it was a fake, my God, that was well done. Better, I mean, he should be making movies with Spielberg. So anyway.
This gentleman's name who has this again?
Chuck Clark. So,
what are you doing, Chuck?
Well, let me finish. So Logan Paul, he's like, I want to go to this guy's house. I said, hey, I got the guy. He's got the information. Logan's like, "God, this is all behind the scenes." So Logan Paul takes, I put him in touch with this guy, and this guy lives in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was like Logan Paul takes a Mercedes with the guys and $100,000 in cash, a big brick. And he goes out to this guy's house in the middle of the desert. And Logan calls me in the middle of nowhere. And he's like, "You sure your contact's legit, dude? My phone doesn't work. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I got $100K cash. I can't find this guy." I said, "No, I'm sure he's good, you know." And so Logan goes in there and meets Chuck Clark. And Chuck Clark's like, "Yeah, I got the tape right here." And so he says, "I'll give you $100,000 for it." And the guy says, "No way." And so Logan Paul, this is going to riff for the first time, Logan Paul has got a button camera on his dress, on his clothes. So Logan's like, "All right, well, this guy doesn't want to, he's going to die with it. So let's get this thing on camera." So Logan's like, "Well, let me see it at least." So Logan looks at it with this thing and, "Oh, could you show it to me again?" Gets another angle, and then he leaves. So Logan's like, "I don't know if I want to go public. I mean, I don't really own the video. I don't know. It seems like a bit of a gray zone." So I said, "Look, this is a story that might be of interest to Bob Lazar, because maybe Bob Lazar should see this video and he could make a determination. I'm just saying. Or maybe George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell might be interested. This is not my domain. I'm not a Bob Lazar big guy. I don't know enough about Bob Lazar. I met Bob Lazar in the early 90s, and he told me, I came up to him at a conference, and I said, 'Hey, thank you for coming forward.' And he said, I didn't have a choice." That was my only, I don't know anything about the, I know you know way more than I do about the case, but I'm just saying, I'm just putting this out there.
How do I know about the case than you?
Well, I
Documentaries on
do.
UFOs.
I do, but I mean, you got one person's account, and it's fascinating. And I believe that Lazar believes what he's saying. But I've talked to George Knapp about this, and George said the same thing. I said, maybe, just maybe. And I'm not out here attacking Lazar or nobody else. I'm just saying maybe he was used as a disinformation plant that seeds some real information and some bogus information to kind of test the waters and the reaction of the public. I don't know.
That's possible.
Yeah, I really...
Most certainly that's possible. If you're going to give people access to classified information like that, you'd be very careful, and you would probably add in some stuff that's not true.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether or not, as long as they have a bunch of stuff that's absolutely provable nonsense.
Yes.
On top of the stuff that's probably real, then they get discredited.
Yes.
Which, look, there's a lot of weird stuff about the Bob Lazar story. A lot of weird stuff about it. And the one that sticks in my mind, and I know this probably shouldn't because it's possible to do, is that it's been consistent. His story's been absolutely consistent since the late 1980s. Now, that's possible to develop a narrative, and if you're disciplined, and he's obviously very intelligent, you could just craft the longest con the world has ever known and make no money from it and turn your life upside down and have the feds search your property, which they did.
Doesn't make a lot of sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. If they thought that he really was in possession of element 115 and that there really is a stable version of this element that we discovered in a particle collider, or we accurately, they predicted it and then proved it to be real in a particle collider. But that wasn't until the 2000s. When was it when they, I want to say, was it 2011 when they officially discovered particle 115? Or element 115. But this element, he said, was stable wherever these beings are from, and they use it to propel their craft through a means of bypassing normal propulsion systems with some insanely sophisticated method where they can pick points in space and they essentially just instantaneously traverse these points in space.
I brought a graph with me. Of course, I left the room, but I'll bring it out at some point. And it was a guy named James Kibble. He's Australian. And it's about it's April 1966. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I did a segment on a landing case that happened at Westall in 1966, which is a suburb, West Primary School, which is a suburb of Melbourne. Shane Ryan did it on it. I just covered a section of it in The Phenomenon. And during my time in Australia, I'd heard about this guy, James Kibble, shot a Polaroid of a disc a couple of kilometers away prior to the landing at the school. A lot of times when you have sightings, mass sightings like that, they're in and around the area for days. So it's very likely that those two are connected. My point is this. According to James Kibble, and he's in the film, he said the disc was kind of coming down like this over his garden, and he had his Polaroid camera he was going to take pictures of.
Were you doing the same wobbling kind
Yeah,
of
he's
of your
kind of, I'm
hand?
just telling you
like-
what he told me, yeah. He
Okay.
said it was kind of wobbling down like a leaf, kind of. And then he was like, holy shit. And he grabbed his Polaroid camera, and he said he did it so quickly, he smashed it in his face, and he split his nose open, but he snapped one shot. And he said what it did is it went like this. Which
Turned
I had,
sideways.
The photograph that I have shows it sideways. And I'll show it to you. I've got it from the original Polaroid. And then it shot off at an unbelievable rate of speed, according to him.
Exactly how those work.
That's exactly my point. And when I interviewed all the children and adults that watched this thing land at this Westall Primary School in 1966, they said the same thing. It was sitting on the ground. They got up to, I think, around 10 feet away from it, which is pretty remarkable. When you talk to witnesses, especially that many witnesses, I mean, there were roughly 300 kids. I didn't meet all 300 of them in the playground when this happened, and including the science teacher, this guy Greenwood, which I got him on camera first time in history in the phenomenon. And they said it got off the ground, and then it went like this. It turned like this.
Turned sideways again.
And then it shot off at a high. It's in the movie. You can hear all the testimony.
It's the same thing.
Yes. And I got a photograph of it like this. I'll
And
show
no
it to you.
sound.
And no sound. A slight humming, buzzing sound. This is 1966. So, and I'm going to get to this later, but we can go back to moment of contact. But I'm going to make the argument that some, and I cannot emphasize how many times we need to underline the word some, UFOs, UAP, originate from a non-human intelligence. And I'll start off in 55, and I'll take us up to modern day. With
Okay.
just a handful of cases that I have personally investigated. I have personally met the witnesses, gone to their houses, dating back to 45, 47, 52, 57, 55, 60s, 64, like all these cases, okay? So basically what I'm going to do is we know that the vast majority of the cases can be explained in conventional terms. All this noise about Chinese balloons and weather balloons, and that's all noise. It's obfuscation and noise. Yeah, we know that all that stuff exists. But what about the core 10% of cases, and I'm going to give you some samples today, that truly, after extensive and exhaustive investigation, not because of lack of data, that defy a conventional explanation, and those are the cases that I'll share with you today when we're ready. But we can go back to moment of contact if you want.
Let's go right into it.
Oh, you want to go right into it?
I'm so excited.
All right,
You
all right,
got me
let's-
so
let's-
pumped
let's,
up.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Here it is.
Oh, you got it.
That's the photo.
That's the photo. I got a much better copy outside, but see the way it turns sideways? Now, let me tell you, if you ever see a photograph of a UFO, and I've talked to NASA analysis about this, and it has a clearly defined edge, it's probably a fake. They have something to do with it's blurred around the edges. They can't get a crisp photograph of a photograph. They think it has something to do with the propulsion, but again, that's not me saying this.
That
I'm
makes
just-
sense.
Yeah.
If there's sort of a field around it.
I have a much better outside, but yeah, this gives you an example.
You have a better copy than this?
I do. I scanned the original. It's in my bag.
Go get the bag.
Should I go
bro.
get it?
Go get that.
I'll go
Would
get
be
it right now.
crazy.
Sorry.
Get the bag, man. Oh, it's right
Oh,
there.
man.
Exciting.
Sorry about that.
Keep
I
that on the
thought
screen,
outside.
please, Jamie. Can I see
Okay.
the full how it's?
Okay, here it is. Look at this.
God, it's oddly centered.
This is
It's perfect.
sent to me by the guy who shot the Polaroid. Okay, there's his handwriting. This came from Australia. Boom. Here it is. Check it out. And see the way it's sideways. That.
Yeah. I'm gonna put on my old man glasses.
Yeah, I know, right? I got mine too. And we can get into my argument that I'm going to put forth as if I'm presenting a case to a jury.
See, my number one problem always with these things is that I want it to be true so bad
Yeah.
that I worry that my rational, logical mind ignores all the
Don't-
possibilities
don't-
of it being bullshit.
Don't look at any one particular case. What you have to do.
I mean, I'm looking at it like this
Does
photograph.
that-
Ooh, that's pretty good.
That's the same one. That's the same
Yeah.
photo.
So
Does that look like
you,
that? Though?
you got to look at it like
Do it again.
yeah.
Real
Yeah.
similar, bro.
I mean, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a bell. It's a school
Yeah.
bell. Time's up, bitch. That's what they're selling. That's what it
I
tells
know.
us.
So-
Time's up, humans.
But you can't base this stuff on
Goddamn
any one.
bell, James. It's over.
You can't
Gig
base
is up.
you-
Jamie's on.
Hey, all I could say is that you talk to the witnesses.
I think if it up, there's a hamburger underneath it. That's what I think. It's like a fancy restaurant hamburger.
Here's your meal, sir. Sure, it is waffle
Fries.
thin.
You know the kind where they don't put the bun together? You got to do it together yourself?
But
The burger's just sitting there?
But you can't. You look at the preponderance of eyewitness testimony from around the world, right? You don't
Yeah.
look at any one particular case. You look at one particular case, you think, I see some cracks in that case. I get it. I
Probably
get it.
one of them food lit. That's what I'm talking. That's what it is. It's 100%. We cracked the case.
Yeah.
It's a
so
food lid. The burger's underneath it.
yeah.
You can see the top thing.
Well, Jamie, that's the propulsion system, you fool. Don't you understand UFO physics?
I don't know which way it's going in the photo.
That's the way it's going, that way.
You could.
I don't know which way it's going. Is it going that way or this way?
You could pull up 1950 Evelyn and Paul. Pretty good photographs of discs in broad
yeah?
daylight. Yeah, they're pretty good.
What is it again?
McMinnville, Oregon, 1950. Evelyn and her husband Paul Trent snapped, I think, 2 or 3 photographs of a disc in broad daylight.
You know, I know Barney Hill's granddaughter.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
She's
she
like a
fights in the UFC.
Yeah,
She's a
that's I
badass.
heard about that.
Angela Hill on the podcast, and she told me about that after we got off the air. I'm like, I should have brought her right back in. Look at that.
There's a better one. Hold on.
It's a hubcap.
Nope, it's
definitely a hubcap.
that one there. That's good. That's pretty good.
That one over there is a
I've got
hubcap.
that extremely high resolution. But you've got 2 eyewitnesses never made a dime out of the story. It's been analyzed to death.
Show me that hubcap one.
Oh, that one's that's 1960.
Yeah, it's a hubcap.
No,
That's a hat.
That's Heflin. No, look at that's Rex Heflin, Santa Ana, California, and there are several Polaroids from Rex Heflin. You can look up Rex Heflin. It's a pretty damn good case.
All jokes aside, how
Yes.
many of these do you think are fake?
Well, I'm showing you the ones that have been scrutinized to death, and no one had any serious claims of being a hoax on the cases that I'm giving you.
So that right there, could you bring me that again, Jamie? That image right there, it's like I feel like someone could fake.
You got to listen. You got to listen to the testimony of Evelyn Trent and her husband Paul, and you got to listen to the analysis that Condon Committee did on this and Blue
On the
Book did on this.
photograph?
Yeah,
And
man.
what
you
did they
got-
say about the photograph?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody was like, "Okay, eyewitness testimony is not good enough."
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, no, I know.
I think if you had a unique experience, if
Yes.
you were out in the desert and you're driving to Nevada and all of a sudden your engine lights went off, close encounters of the third kind style, and you got out and there was a fucking disc and it hovered over you for a second and then it took off at an insane rate of speed and you're just left there alone with this memory.
Yeah. And
I sympathize with those people because in the vast universe that we exist in, it's entirely possible that something like that has the power to get here. It's entirely possible. Also, people are full of shit. There's
question.
a lot of people that are full of shit.
No
And
question.
that's part of my problem.
Yeah.
My problem is not that I don't believe. My problem is I don't believe people that much. And I do believe some people. And there's some sincere people. And that's one of my problems with Bob Lazar. I believe Bob Lazar. When I talk to that guy, I like what you say. I believe he believes what he's saying. And there's something to that. But I also think, God, if you wanted to get someone that you could easily discredit, if you had a propulsion system that was baffling you, and you had some wizard who likes to make hydrogen-powered Corvettes, and he put a rocket engine in the back of a Honda. Did you ever see that?
I did.
He's
Yeah.
a psycho. So he's a guy who understands propulsion systems. He's clearly brilliant. You listen to the guy talk, he's off the charts intelligent.
Yeah.
And you would say, hey, let's bring the fucking psycho over here. Let's have that guy go down there. I mean, this guy's out there in the fucking desert shooting AK-47s and shit. He's a wild man, right? So you bring that guy and you tell him, hey, tell us what this is. Go to work. And he's walking around there and he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, that's the kind of guy if you're at the end of your rope,
Yeah.
especially if you're a brilliant person. If you're a brilliant person and you happen to be a general or happen to be someone who's in charge over there and you are thinking, like, we got to look outside the box. Like, we got to do something. We got to bring in other perspectives. And you got to bring in someone that's not going to be able to communicate with other scientists. This is part of the problem. You can't share data. They can't peer review with other scientists all over the world because it's top secret shit. So everything has to stay within this small group, very small group of people, and none of them are cracking it. All of them they bring in, they're fucking stunned and baffled. So you keep funneling new people in. They do experiments. Something blows up. Some people die. And you're like, okay, let's try some more. What else you got? Well, we got this guy at Los Alamos Lab. He puts fucking rocket engines in the back of some Hondas, and he's a propulsions expert. He's kind of nuts, but maybe bring him in.
Yeah, so I'll get back to Domain because this is that I know, and I know primarily because I went and interviewed the witnesses.
I just went off on it.
No, it's all good.
I'm gonna buzz our day.
Okay.